Bessie May notices the expression on young Perkins' face. "What's wrong?" she asks. "Oh, nothing, I guess. I hope you ain't coming down with no fever." Whereupon his grandmother places her palm against the young man's forehead. "Bessie May, he feels fine." His grandmother replies, grateful for the young man's health. Smiling, she exclaims, "My baby just misses his grandma's cookin', that's all." "You gonna stay for dinner?" inquires the kind old soul. Bessie May interrupts. "He sure is. We's having black-eyed peas, candied sweet potatoes, collard greens, and hot water cornbread. You show is gonna stay for dinner," his aunt laughingly insists. Young Perkins' grimace fades. His grandmother and Bessie May fills the room with a warm glow of loving kindness. The affection they exude changes his grimace into a smile. There's nothing like the pleasant odor of real down-home cooking for a black boy from Mississippi. The smell of the food was intoxicating. "How soon will supper be ready?" he asks. "It's about done now," replies Bessie May with a friendly little chuckle. Turning, she re-enters the kitchen. The sound of pots and pans echo through the kitchen. Her voice calls out, "Yep, everything's about ready. Y'all better come in here and eat. Hurry now, 'fore I eat it up." With that, she gives out a healthy chuckle. Young Perkins helps his grandmother to the table, where the two sit waiting to be served. Bessie May begins humming an old gospel tune as she sets the table. Placing 3 plates atop a clean white linen tablecloth, she begins dishing out hearty helpings of soul food: black-eyed peas, Louisiana long-grain rice, collard greens, and such fare that would warm the heart of any true country boy. Young Perkins detects the presence of an old friend, the pièce de résistance. His grandmother's delectable blackberry pie sets in the warmth of an old iron stove, slowly browning. Young Perkins struggles to hide his emotions. He wants to be back at home. His home, with his grandmother at his side, just the two of them. Bessie May, being a big woman, deemed the meal not complete without there being some sort of meat. The ham hocks in the collard greens wasn't enough. To her, black-eyed peas wasn't black-eyed peas without the presence of some sort of pork. So in went the hog jowls. Why is the most unhealthy food always the most delicious? Bessie May's heart overflowed with kindness, with love. She expressed it in her cooking. Young Perkins' plate was overflowing, as if to cause the young man an instant heart attack or stroke. His eyes grew large as she topped the mound with a thick cut of a heavily battered, fried pork chop. "Oh, this is too much," he explains. "Bessie May, I don't think I can finish all of this." "Sure you can. You're a growing boy. You need your strength. What the widow Hazel know about cooking?" Before the young man can answer, she snaps, "Nothing. That gal don't know the first thing about cooking. I can tell by just looking at the poor thing. She don't know the first thing about cooking. She ain't got no meat on her bones." Lifting the heavily battered pork chop, she angrily tears it in half. After taking a large bite, she reiterates, "I tell you that gal don't know nothing about cooking." With her mouth half filled with food, she turns to Miss Emma and questions, "Does you flavor your food wit poke?" A whimsical smile comes over his grandma's face. Looking down in embarrassment, she replies with, might. A bit of pork does add to the flavor." Pleased with the answer, big-boned Bessie May takes an even larger bite of the pork chop, then turns to young Perkins. "Boy, is you gonna sit there and tell me she put ham hocks in her greens?" Before the young man can answer, he is again cut off. No, she don't. Her pork chop completely consumed, she uses the bone as a pointer. She points to the various pots and pans on the stove and questions, "Do she cook chitlins? No. Do she cook hog jowls? No. Do she cook neck bones, ham hocks, fat back, crackling, pig's feet? Young Perkins knows better than to attempt to answer. He merely continues his meal as she rants. Bessie May then looks at young Perkins with a sorrowful expression. "Po baby, you po thang. That there widow gal like to starve you to death. Don't you worry yourself, boy. When you gets hungry, you just come on down here to Bessie May's." "Thank you, ma'am," he respectfully replies. "Don't you think nothing of it," she warmly responds. When he come back, everything gonna be all right. You see, yes, Lord, you see Jesus. He gonna make everything all right." Her childlike trust in the pastor pierces the young man's heart. The stiletto tip of truth passes through the flesh. It bores deep into his very soul. He tries to put it from his mind, focusing his attention on the feast before him. The three engaged in idle banter, while the youth numbly replies in monosyllables. After the passage of some time, the young man is relieved to find supper at an end. He is a bit amazed that his stomach possessed such elasticity. "And now for dessert," Bessie May declares. Scooting his chair from the table, young Perkins' eyes plead for reprieve. His grandmother smilingly explains, "Bessie, the boy's full. Let him take that home to Miss Hazel." The look of relief he presents his grandmother is beyond description. "Thank you, ma'am." He voices his gratitude to his aunt. "I'm sure the widow Hazel will appreciate that." "Well then, if you think so," she says, "let me just wrap this here pie." The bottom of the pan is still warm as Bessie May takes a clean cloth and wraps the bottom of the pie pan. And now she hands the pie to young Perkins. "Hold it right, mind you now. It's hot." The young man carefully holds the pie in both hands. As the light slowly fades, Bessie May begins lighting the oil lanterns. As she does so, young Perkins' grandmother gives him a kiss on the cheek. "You be a good boy." "Yes, Grandma," he replies. Young Perkins softly questions, "Grandma, how long you gonna be here?" "Not long, baby," she answers, as Miss Emma continues to escort her melancholy grandson to the front door. The evening's peace is suddenly destroyed by the sound of an inebriated drunkard approaching, spewing out loud vulgarities and declarations of violence and drunken curses. Silas was home. The front door burst open. Standing in the doorway, weaving back and forth, Silas stands glaring through bleary eyes. Young Perkins standing silently, angrily glaring at the drunken lout, his slovenly appearance a thing of disgust. Bessie May rushes to greet him. "Silas, honey, I got supper in the—" Her words are cut short as Silas pushes past and staggering into the bedroom, where the sound of his body falling heavily across the bed causes the rusty springs to creak. He instantly becomes unconscious, the sound of his snoring echoing throughout the house. Bessie May, embarrassed, merely looks down and continues lighting the few lanterns. Young Perkins' grandmother shakes her head and emits a sigh. Nothing more need be said. Her presence there is yet required. "Oh, how I wish you were dead." Young Perkins' mind burns with anger. "God damn you, Silas, damn your soul. I despise you. Oh, how I wish it were you instead of Jonah. If I could just pick you up, I'd carry you to the conjure woman's shack and hurl you to the ground before her." The young man's anger cools as the thought of the widow Hazel being alone urges haste. "Good night, Bessie May." "Goodbye, Grandma." He bids them farewell. As he gives his grandmother a final peck on the cheek, she reminds him about tomorrow. "Don't forget, baby. Put on your nice suit. You're gonna get baptized. Praise the Lord. My baby gonna be washed in the blood." Young Perkins grinds his teeth at the thought of Pastor Jackson performing the ritual. "Yes, ma'am. I won't forget." With that, he quickly exits the porch and makes a beeline in the direction of the widow's house. As he continues on his way, he considers different tactics, different ways in which he could convince Kevin to join him, not merely in the baptism that would merely seal them from the wrath of the tree. They wouldn't be condemned to share Jonah's fate. Perhaps, in being baptized, there would be no need to fear the tree. Yes, they would be free of the tree. But what of the conjure woman? Old Granny Hagen. Young Perkins needed an ally, someone to brave the perils of the swamp. Some fool, as foolhardy as himself. And that fool was none other than his good old pal, Kevin. Yes, sir, good old Kevin. Kevin possessed an unwavering trust in him. Young Perkins walks up the pathway, leading to the widow's home. Knocking on the door, he's bid entry by the young widow. "My grandma's given us one of her pies," he says with a loud voice. "Oh my, I didn't expect you back so soon," says the widow, who still remains in the bathtub, enjoying her leisurely bath. "I'll put the pie on the kitchen counter." "Thank you, little man. That will be just fine. You stay in the kitchen for a bit while I get out of the tub. I'll have to put on some things." Young Perkins' curiosity urges himself to take a gander, just a peek, however so brief, at the young widow. As she exits the bathroom, he can imagine the bath towel wrapped around her exquisite body. Moreover, he can imagine her completely nude, soaked to the bone, her honey-brown skin glistening with a seductive coating of soapy water. The frothy suds barely cover her ample frame, as she, like Venus rising, pulls the plug. The sound of rushing water echoes through the bathroom. The bathtub begins to drain. "Stay in the kitchen, little man," she warns. "I'm not decent." The widow then exits the bathroom and rushes into the confines of her bedroom. Her dresser drawer is heard to open as she hums a little ditty. Exiting the door, she enters the hallway, clad in a sheer nightgown, greeting the young man with a kiss on the cheek. "How is your grandma?" "Oh, she's okay," he replies with a slight groan, rubbing his stomach. The widow gives a little chuckle. That Bessie May has a way of feeding a body. Gazing at the young man's stomach. Poor boy. That Bessie May doesn't feel like you've not been fed unless she puts some kind of fattening pork in the pot. That's why she's so heavy. She got a habit of feeding a body too. Almost bursting. I see by your belly you stayed for dinner. How about that no-good Silas? Was he there? Her inquiries are met with silence by the young man, whose eyes have become fixed in a hypnotic gaze. The young widow's moist nipples bleed through the sheer fabric of her nightgown. For an adolescent, such as young Perkins, the sight is more than a feast. The glow of the lights in the bathroom behind reveals all. Young Perkins remembers westerns where a pale-complected white woman sits immersed in the frothy suds of a bathtub. She is suddenly surprised by a desperado. That always seems to be the predictable scenario in every all-white B-movie western. However, to young Perkins, the pale white flesh of a Caucasian held no comparison to the dark velvety beauty of a black woman. The widow's brown skin emitted a glow like warm caramel. It possessed a certain sheen, like that of molten copper. Oh, Silas. The young man's mind strains to recall the question. Silas? Yes, Silas, replies the widow. He didn't cause any trouble, did he? Young Perkins' mind contains no thought of Silas. For a brief moment he couldn't recall who exactly his Uncle Silas was. Oh, Silas? Punishing his head with the smack of his hand. Oh no, he was no trouble at all. Miss Hazel emits a little chuckle as she realizes where the young man's eyes are fixed. Oh my, she says with embarrassment, let me put on my house coat. Don't mind me, ma'am, he replies. His eyes glutted. The young man smiles with pleasure as the widow exits the hall and enters her bedroom. She reemerges with a thick flannel house coat. "There, that's better," she says with a smile. "No, it ain't," young Perkins thinks to himself. "I liked you better just the way you were. You just sit right down while I run the tub for your bath. You gotta look good tomorrow for your baptism." The widow washes the tub clean and again runs a fresh tub of water for young Perkins. After a time, she calls the young man to the tub. "There you go, little man. I put in some bubble bath. I think you'll like it." Young Perkins enters the bathroom where he sees a mound of suds. "Is all that water for me?" "Why, sure it is," the widow answers, amused at the young man's ignorance. The young man casts a quizzical gaze at the unfamiliar sight of soap suds. The tub is overflowing with bubbles, both large and small. A bubble bath is something quite alien to the young man. He timidly, tentatively presents a single toe. At the tickling touch of the bubbles, young Perkins yanks his foot from the tub. The bubbles tickle his toes as he admits a little squeak. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" inquires the widow with concern. "No, ma'am. I just ain't never seen nothing like that," voices young Perkins with the ignorance of a country boy. "Go ahead on," she says. "It won't hurt." Whereupon the young man immerses his foot ankles and whole body into the warming pleasure of a bubble bath. This is nice, he thinks to himself. When he was back home, he had to rush. Back there, a bath was something of a chore, something to be rushed through. Young Perkins remembers hastily scrubbing his body clean before the water cooled, where now he felt like a king, a potentate. He could take his time amid the warmth and pleasurable luxury of a bubble bath. A scented bath, in fact. Young Perkins, every muscle relaxed. Reclining there in the steaming, relaxing heat of the tub, he experienced a soothing sensuality that hadn't been felt by any young colored boy of his age or his class. The pleasant odor of the bath salts added to the experience. The young man's eyes slowly closed as he drifted into a kind of twilight zone, a realm as vast as space and timeless as infinity. The warmth of the tub seemed to lift him from his body. Hovering above himself, he basked in the glow of nirvana, fearing nothing, desiring nothing. He was at peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding. After what seemed an eternity, the pleasant voice of the young widow called him back. "Little man, are you about finished? My, it's been a long time." Young Perkins' eyes slowly opened. The young widow impatiently informs him that he's been in the tub for nearly 1 hour. "It's nearly midnight," she says. It is only then that young Perkins realized that the warmth of the bathtub had dissipated. He found himself laying in a tub, the water of which had become quite tepid. "I'm sorry, Miss Hazel. I must have went to sleep." Whereupon the widow laughingly exclaims, "Little man, you don't have to apologize to me. I fall asleep in the tub all the time. I always say, there is absolutely nothing like a long hot bath to help a body to forget their sorrows. Come on now, it's past your bedtime. You see the towel on the towel rack?" "Yes, ma'am," he replies. "Well, you just dry yourself off. I washed your PJs. They're laying on the bed. You're a big boy now. I suspect you don't need an old woman like me to tuck you in." "Thank you, ma'am," young Perkins lazily responds. His strength drained from the heat of the tub, he dries himself with the towel. While standing in front of the doorway of his bedroom, he is reminded of his audience. A disconcerting feeling causes him to stand in place. With his hand, he cautiously pushes the door open. He is met by the gaze of hundreds of eyes. Lord God, Not another night in this room. The young man agonizes over his predicament. Taking a deep breath, he puts on a bold face and greets the porcelain figures with a smile and a hearty, "Good evening, girls. How's everything going?" Entering the room, he begins putting on his pajamas, all the while eyeing the figures who blankly stare back. After hastily donning his pajamas, he dives into bed, pulling the cover up to the bridge of his nose. Young Perkins nervously begins chuckling. His seemingly expression of humor is not formed from the comedic, but from fright. Now remember, when I'm asleep, I want you to keep an eye on things, huh? With the rise of the moon, so close is young Perkins' day. The warmth of the bath has an opiate affect. The lids of drowsy eyes slowly close as gently flowing waves of blissful sleep dreamily lulls him to rest.
Okay, so today we're diving into a really specific moment. One single day in the life of young Perkins from Curse of the Mandrake.
Right.
It's chapter 10. You can still trust him.
Yeah, and it's an incredible chapter for looking at contrast. I mean, the emotional swings are just huge.
Totally. So our mission, I guess, is to unpack that. We're following Perkins through these like completely opposite experiences.
Exactly. We go from this overwhelming affection and food right into chaos and fear, and then land somewhere completely unexpected. This sort of sensory peace.
Let's start right at the beginning then, in Bessie May's kitchen. That scene with the down-home cooking.
Mm-hmm. The smell alone is powerful, isn't it? It says it turns his grimace right into a smile, that initial hit of comfort.
But it's comfort turned up to 11, maybe.
Oh, definitely. It's love expressed through food, but it's almost aggressive. Think about that menu.
Okay, yeah, list it out. It's quite something.
You've got black-eyed peas, candied sweet potatoes, collard greens.
Got to have the greens.
Right, with ham hocks, naturally. Then Louisiana long-grain rice, hot water cornbread, and the piece de resistance, as they say.
The blackberry pie. His grandmother's, right? In the iron stove.
Yep, warm blackberry pie. But Bessie May's philosophy is key here.
What's that exactly?
Well, for her, a meal just isn't complete without pork. It's not just about taste. It feels like it's about sufficiency, abundance.
Yeah, and she really spells it out.
She does. Hog jowls have to be in the peas, ham hocks in the greens, and then she lists everything the poor widow Hazel doesn't have.
Oh, yeah, the chitlins, neck bones, fat back.
Crackling, pig's feet. It's partly providing, partly, well, maybe a bit of judgment on the widow's situation.
And poor Perkins is right in the middle of this food avalanche.
Literally, his plate is overflowing, and then there's that massive fried pork chop on top.
The one described as enough for an instant heart attack or stroke. He's actually saying, stop, that's too much.
Yeah, it's too much food, maybe too much, everything. Because deep down, what does he really want?
He just wants to be home. With his grandmother and Miss Emma, just the two of them. That bounty is almost suffocating him.
It is. But luckily, Miss Emma picks up on it. She sees he's stressed.
And gives him the perfect out.
Exactly. Suggests he takes the pie over to Widow Hazel's place. Boom. Instant relief for Perkins. He can escape.
Which is good timing, because the peace doesn't last long, does it?
Not at all. Talk about whiplash. Just as he's about to leave, Silas shows up.
Ugh, Silas. The mood just tanks instantly.
Completely. The description is brutal. Inebriated drunkard, yelling, just chaos.
Vulgarities, threats, drunken curses. It says Bessie May is embarrassed.
Understandably. But Mrs. Emma, just a sigh, like, here we go again.
And Silas just passes out cold in the bedroom, right? Making the springs creak.
Yep. collapses, and that sound, those rusty springs, it just sort of echoes the state of things.
And this is where Perkins' internal state gets really dark.
Oh, incredibly dark. Pure rage boiling up inside him.
He's thinking, God damn you, Silas, wishing he was dead, wishing Silas had died instead of Jonah.
That's intense. And the fantasy he has.
About carrying Silas to the conjure woman's shack and just throwing him down there.
Yeah.
It's incredibly violent thinking for a kid.
It really is. And then, boom, another contrast. Right after that dark thought.
His grandmother reminds him about church tomorrow.
Yep. Wear your suit for the baptism, Perkins. Be washed in the blood. Talk about a shift in gears. From homicidal thoughts to salvation.
No wonder he's resisting it. It says he grinds his teeth just thinking about Pastor Jackson doing the baptism.
Yeah, it's clearly not bringing him comfort. It feels forced, maybe performative. He dreads it.
But he feels he needs it, or at least needs someone with him. His plan for Kevin.
Right, his friend Kevin. He figures if they get baptized together, maybe it'll protect them.
Protect them from the wrath of the tree, whatever happened to Jonas.
Exactly. He needs an ally, someone he trusts completely, and he thinks Kevin's that person relying on his unwavering trust.
So, okay. He leaves that house, stuffed with food, filled with rage, terrified about baptism, and heads over to Widow Hazel's.
And enters a completely different world. This next part is all about senses relief, maybe even awakening.
He gets there with the pie. She's still in the bath.
And she tells him, stay in the kitchen now, I'm not decent. Very clearly.
Which, for a boy that age,
Yeah.
probably doesn't dampen the curiosity much.
Not one bit. And when she comes out in that sheer nightgown, he's just captivated, frozen.
The description of her skin is really something.
It is very rich, very specific, honey brown, dark velvety beauty, glistening like warm caramel or molten copper.
It feels like a deliberate celebration of black beauty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the author underlines it by having Perkins compare it to what he usually sees.
The B-movie westerns. All those pale white women surprised by desperados.
Yeah. And he thinks that predictable image, it held no comparison to the reality of the widow Hazel right in front of him. It's a powerful moment.
And then, after this sort of sensual overload, comes physical comfort.
Yes. The widow Hazel sees he's tense, maybe grubby from the day, and draws him a bath.
But not just any bath. A bubble bath.
Which is totally new to him. Alien. Unfamiliar.
I love the detail where the bubbles tickle his toes and he squeaks.
It's such a small, genuine moment of just being a kid, isn't it? After all the adult weight he's carrying.
Definitely. And once he's in the tub...
It's transformative. He actually relaxes. Let's go.
Feels like a king, a potentate. That's quite a statement.
It is. He finds this nirvana, this peace that surpasses all understanding, in a bubble bath.
The scented salts, the heat... It's all described as soothing sensuality. He just drifts.
Yeah, into a twilight zone. He stays in there for almost an hour until the water gets cool, forgetting Silas, forgetting the baptism, just peace.
That seems like the absolute high point of his day, pure physical contentment.
It really is, and you almost feel like this is his real cleansing, maybe. Not the one he's dreading tomorrow, but of course the peace can't last.
Right. That brings us to the last bit, the come down.
Yep. He finally gets out feeling drained from the heat, puts on the clean pajamas she washed for him, ready for sleep.
But then he opens the bedroom door.
And bam! Reality hits. Or, well, unreality. Hundreds of eyes staring back at him.
The porcelain figures.
Yeah.
That sense of peace just evaporates.
Instantly. Lord God, not another night in this room. The comfort is gone, replaced by that feeling of being watched, trapped again.
His reaction is kind of funny, but sad too. That nervous chuckle.
Yeah, talking to them. Good evening, girls. How's everything going? Then diving under the covers.
Telling him to keep an eye on things.
Yeah.
It's definitely a coping mechanism. Fear disguised as a joke.
But the bath did its work, didn't it? That opiate effect, the deep physical relaxation, it finally lets him sleep.
So, what a day. This chapter really throws Perkins between these wild extremes.
Absolutely. You've got the forced feasting versus like a kind of sensory fasting in the bath. You've got that burning rage versus achieving nirvana.
It's constant emotional whiplash.
Yeah, and looking at the bigger picture, you see these key themes emerging, right?
Definitely. The intensity of soul food as love, but also pressure. The real fear of local threats like the tree or the conjure woman.
Yeah.
That spiritual anxiety is palpable.
And then the surprise escape offered by something so modern and simple, like a bubble bath, that domestic luxury.
Which leaves us with a pretty interesting question, I think.
Go on.
Well, Perkins is terrified of the baptism, which is supposed to save him, give him peace. But the bubble bath actually gave him that peace that surpasses all understanding.
The physical experience delivered what the spiritual one promised, but inspired dread instead.
So was that physical sanctuary, that moment of pure sensory relief at the widow Hazel's, actually a more effective, more real form of salvation for him in that moment than the religious ritual he's facing?
That's a great question to ponder. When you're desperate for relief, where does true peace actually come from? Is it always where you expect it?
Something for you all to think about. Where do you find your peace when things get overwhelming?